Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first panel here at SCG Con Summer 2019. Thank you for coming out. Our first panel today is going to be Exploring Modern Horizons. And with me, I have Gavin Verhey. Do you want to mention your involvement with Modern Horizons?
Hello, everybody. My name is Gavin Verhey. I am a senior game designer and product architect. Wow, it's weird to hear yourself as you're saying words. I worked on Modern Horizons. I got to play test it a bunch. I designed some cards for the set, and it's a blast. It's like no other set we've ever made. I was also so deeply involved in the hackathon, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that helped create Modern Horizons. So I can talk a little bit about that and what exactly a game design hackathon is as well, because it kind of creates some cool stuff. This and a few other things you don't know about yet.
Awesome. And we also have with us Brian David Marshall, Pro Tour historian. And do you want to talk a little bit about your brief experience with Modern Horizons?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian. It's Pro Tour historian emeritus now.
Emeritus now.
There is no more Pro Tour, so
that's true. Mythic
called the
Championship.
Mythic Championship.
Historian.
I got to actually play with Modern Horizons last weekend. I was part of the pre-release at the Loading Ready Run Moonbase, which was a spectacular time, and we had a ton of fun. And I got to open up a pack for the first time, not knowing all the cards, and find a spider in there that was really exciting. And also just like really bathe in nostalgia while drafting what I thought was a really good deck.
Had that card not been previewed yet when you opened it up?
It was previewed while I was in the draft. While they were recording the draft, Reed Duke previewed Rot Widow pack.
Yeah, this guy right here, Rot Widow pack. Never one too far away from BDM, I'm pretty sure.
And my phone just starts buzzing while we're doing the draft. It's like going crazy. And Reed had spoiled it on Twitter, and everyone was just kind of like, WTF, why didn't Brian get to spoil
Just tagging
this?
you in it.
Yeah, it was great. I got tagged a bunch. But it was actually, I think, Blake afterwards said, like, oh, maybe I should have done that, but you were on coverage, then you weren't on coverage, and whatever the reason was. But actually, I'm glad I didn't get to preview it, because actually, the thing that's really exciting about Magic is opening a pack for the first time and not knowing all the cards and not knowing that that card was in there. That was super exciting for me. So I'm really happy with how it worked out.
Yeah, if you ever have the chance, like playing in a pre-release blind is so much fun. Like just opening up your cards, no clue what's in the set. It's like, well, it could be anything. I don't know what's going to be in there. That's the fun part of my job is you'll go and do play tests and someone will have changed 40 cards in the set and you're like, I don't know, what broken mythic rare am I going to lose to today, right? And you never know.
All right, so we're going to go through a couple of questions that hopefully that both of you can talk about a little bit. And then we've also got some submitted questions that were submitted through our website. If you'd like to ask questions of either of these two, we have a little kiosk thing, I guess, over here. I don't know how to say it. But yeah, there's some index cards and some pens. And just go ahead and write that down and hand them to our director, Dan, right over here. And he will make sure to take care of that for you. All right, so the first thing is, obviously you talked a little bit about the hackathon, and how did the idea of a Modern Legal booster set come up? Like how did that formulate?
Yeah, it's so interesting because that's not how it started at all, which is what the set comes out now and you're like, Modern Horizons, duh, the set about Modern, but that's actually not where it started. So there were a lot of projects in this hackathon, and one of the ideas was Time Spiral 2 or Future Sight 2. And so that's what Ethan Fleischer and Mark Rosewater and all those folks started coming up with initially. And they built out a prototype of it and had all these wonky, wild cards with mashups of mechanics and alternate futures and throwbacks. And then everyone loved playing this kind of experience, and we felt like we could do it a lot better now than Time Spiral. So we went forward with it, and then we get part of the way into digging into actually designing the product after it's been greenlit. And that's when the idea of Modern Legality came up. And we realized we could not only make this a great ancillary booster release along the lines of a Battle Bond or a Conspiracy or something really cool like that, but we could also really impact Modern, get all the Modern players out there excited by this set. And that's kind of when we made the switch over, and that dictated the design a little bit. For example, all the mechanics are mechanics that appear in Modern somewhere because we wanted to make sure they all felt like they fit within Modern. We started looking at Modern decks and strategies to find cards that would supplement them. And so you get a lot of that Modern playability, exciting stuff going on there. But then there's still tons and tons and tons of just what I'll call Time Spiral 2 designs floating around in the file.
Awesome. So this seems to be coming out around the same time as previously what would have been the master sets, the Modern Masters and things of that nature. Was this something that was developed, or the idea of initially came out before the announcement that they were going to try and kind of steer away from those products, or was this something that came out with that already in mind, that was a thing that was going to continue moving forward?
You know, a lot of things in Wizards are all happening kind of at the same time. Mm-hmm. And the discussion to retire master sets for now and do Modern Horizons were kind of like simultaneously parts of the same discussion with each other. Of course, we know we have to get more reprints out there somehow. So if not by Modern Masters, how are we going to get them out into the world? So there was many moving pieces of this discussion. And part of it was, okay, we'll make this new set Modern Horizons, where we can show off new cards for Modern and reprint some old cards into Modern. But also part of that conversation was, okay, if not master sets, how are we going to get reprints out into the world? And you know, not everything's been announced yet of how everything's going to all work. But we have a lot of cool plans for the future.
You can't stuff all the value into Commander.
Gavin, let me ask you something. When you're introducing all these new cards to Modern, and not just brand new cards, but cards that weren't in Modern before, what's the, you know, when the next Mythic Championship happens and you look at all the deck lists, which I'm sure you'll like pour over in R&D, like what percentage of the cards in Modern Horizons do you want to see show up in a deck that people play at that level of competition?
Yeah, I think we aimed, and if you know, I don't have my design notes in front of me, but I think we aimed for about 15%, somewhere in there, 10 to 15%. You know, the goal was not to, we want to be really careful because Modern is a format players like a lot. They love Modern. And if 100% of the cards in Modern Horizons hit when they came out, the format would look nothing like what it looked like before. You spend all this time building up these Modern decks, and then you're like, oh, actually, throw all those away. It's time for Snow Splinter Combo Twin or whatever. I don't know.
Snowstorm. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, time for Snowstorm, or I don't know, whatever wild archetype, Cascade Dredge, you know? And so yeah, I'm in for that too. But so we wanted to be very careful, especially the first time around doing this, to make sure that we were hitting Modern the right amount. And to that end, we actually hired new people onto the team just to test and work on Modern Horizons. We brought in Tom Ross and Dan Musser as just people who were really focused on, let's get this set right and let's focus Modern. And Tom, of course, a lot of Modern experience. He's even here this weekend, I believe. And we wanted to really make sure we could have people dedicated to testing these cards in the format.
A lot of people who played Modern in this tournament environment at an SCG Invitational, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People who have been in this room many times. And also, you know, I think about the Modern impact here is, I've been reading a lot of the posts online, a lot of people talking about how much impact this is going to have in Modern. Modern is a format with so many cards and so many interactions that there's a lot of things with the set I think people haven't even picked up on yet or noticed new cards that will enable new archetypes that don't just slot into something you already know, but will actually create a brand new thing that may even take some time for players to find. So stay tuned, I guess.
That's awesome. All right. So this is something that you kind of talked about a little bit already, but what was it like trying to balance a set of cards that you wanted to add to Modern, knowing that it wouldn't go into Standard, with being able to be played in Limited as well? Because that's something that like these sets are also known for, is having like generally really good Limited environments as well. So how was that balance achieved?
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you look at the set, you have to fill out several hundred cards of a set. You're gonna have some cards that are shots at Modern, some cards that are shots at things like Commander, you know, because just making sweet Magic cards is awesome for those formats. And then you're gonna have to fill out the set with some other things somewhere. And well, Limited is a backbone of Magic. If you get, there's a rule about Magic. We talk about this all the time. If you give someone a sealed object of 15 cards, it will be drafted. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's a booster pack, it's been drafted. I've seen From the Vault's dragons drafted. Like, if you're like, it's an object inside 15 cards, it's going to get drafted. And so we like to build our boosters with an experience there as well, right? Something you can do that is fun and enjoyable and hits a whole different kind of player, because there are a lot of players who just play limited. They just play draft. So why not make it a great opportunity for them to come in as well? Plus, it's kind of a great cross-pollination thing. Maybe you draft this a bunch of times, you get some new cards, and then you're like, this modern format sounds pretty interesting. Let's go give that a try. And so, we did develop a lot with modern in mind. Plus, it's just fun to revisit all these old mechanics. And I haven't played Cascade in a limited format in a very long time. Let's give that a roll again. If you can tell, I love Throes of Chaos. That card is just everything I want to do. The number of times we're going to be playing Modern Horizons Limited, I'm going to look at my hand and I'll have like a bunch of perfectly castable cards, and then be like, nah, I'm just going to spin this wheel again. I can't say no. I just can't say no.
At the draft we did at LRR, there was a Throes of Chaos going around. Everyone's just kind of like, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? I should have done it. I regret not doing it.
I think it's good, right? Like, late game, you just turn all your lands into action.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm into it.
So, Brian, you talked a little bit, mentioning this. You've had a chance to try out the limited environment. You did sealed for the pre-release.
I actually did draft.
You did a draft at the.
There was no seal.
There was no seal at all. So you got a chance to do the drafts there. So how do you feel about the limited environment, and like, how would you rate it?
It seemed really good. I mean, I would like to draft 10 or 20 more times this weekend just to be sure, but. No, it seemed great. Everyone was able to have really good decks, really signal kind of pretty cleanly, and all the decks seemed pretty competitive. And there was the capacity for nonsense, which is what I want in a limited format, right? I want to be able to do something really dumb. And I got to draft a recursive deck with Stream of Thought and Regrowth, and just mill my opponent out while sort of staying alive. I even played the Storm Life Gain card at one point in the deck, just as like my gnaw to the bone. I was able to recreate a spider spawning deck in the format. But yeah, no, the format seems really, really good. I think if you find a lane that you can be in, there's a lot of fun things you can do.
What did you think about the different mechanics and callbacks in the set?
I mean, people didn't believe me when we were doing the pre-release, because I just kept saying, oh my God, this is one of my 10 favorite cards of all time. Oh my God, it's Crows and Tusker. Oh my God, it's Wall of Blossoms. Oh my God, it's Unearth. And then there's a card called Winding Way, which is in the set, which is, I love Mulch. Mulch is like one of my 10 favorite cards of all time. They're all in the spider spawning deck. But Winding Way is Mulch plus. So you get to choose either land or creature, and then you reveal 4 cards, and you put all of the cards of the chosen type in your hand and the rest in your graveyard. And that's all I want to do in Magic, is put cards of the chosen type in my hand and the rest in my graveyard. So it was very exciting for me. I mean, basically everyone was able to, on a first draft where we didn't know the whole set, find something that was 2-colored, and then put blinders on, right? Ignore the other things, and have a really good deck. And to me, that's a great starting point for a new draft format, especially something that has like 46 mechanics in it.
Yeah.
You were able to just kind of narrow down and see what really works for you. It's funny, this deck, which is here, if I had thought about it a little more, knew a little more, I could have easily splashed a 3rd color. And even though there's not great mana fixing in the set, I had really great mana, and probably would have even gone a little deeper with it on a second draft. So I think that there's a lot of secrets still to be revealed in this draft format.
The sign to me of a good draft format, we talk about a lot, is when on your first draft, you're like, you can figure out what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And then on your 20th draft, there's still new stuff for you to find, right? And I think you'll find a lot of that here. I think you'll find a lot of that across formats like Innistrad, Razdil, Eldrazi, what a lot of players call our best formats of all time, because you get that like 20th draft replayability, while your first draft you can kind of figure out what's going on.
I loved the addition of Changelings into the set.
Oh my gosh.
The way they're going to interact with Slivers, the way they interact with Ninjas, the way they interact with other just tribal synergies that are, kind of littered throughout the set. It's really nice, and I feel like we haven't changelings haven't had this much of an opportunity to shine in limited before as they do in this draft format.
Yeah, the white-black archetype in limited is like changelings plus weird random pump, right? It's like all your lions or all your cats get +2/+1, and like all your thopters get +1/+1, which look like ridiculous magic cards, but they all work together in this like goofy changeling deck. The idea for like tribal lords plus changelings of random types, I think actually came from like a Reddit thread somewhere. Like we were just like reading someone's goofy ideas, and I don't know, someone was like, wouldn't it be funny if there was a format where you had like a bunch of changelings and weird tribal lords? We're like, ooh, that's actually an interesting plan. So we built the end of the set. Anyway, I love that deck, and I love drafting the white black kind of lords of all kinds.
Yeah,
deck.
no,
It's
super
really fun.
sweet.
All right. So one of the other things, and we briefly touched on this before, was that this is the first time we've seen snow in quite a while. Or snow matters. How did that end up winding its way into the set?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of snow. I actually tried to get snow into Modern Masters 1 or 2, I can't remember, as the blue-red draft archetype. I was like, oh, you get like your uncommon rhyme feather owls and your screds and like do all this stuff, but it didn't work. So this time around, I was super glad that Adam Prozac decided to build it in here. And to me, it's one of those things that's like a fun callback. People have been asking for snowlands for a while, and I feel like actually we hit it at exactly the right time. Like demand for snowlands has been building and building and building, and then this hit at like exactly the right point, which is hard for us to navigate sometimes because quite often people will be asking for things, and by the time we put it into a set, it's a year and a half or 2 years before you all see it. And we had kind of done this one a little early, which is great. So it was just, it was a fun kind of throwback to get to touch on. It allows for a bunch of cool and innovative designs, and you just get to put the word snow on a bunch of cards, which is fun. How do you feel about the Snowran Viper? I know you were a big Oran Viper fan back in the day.
I haven't gotten a chance to play with it yet. So like the sum total of snow cards I saw in my draft is like this snow-covered forest and whatever lands I opened. Someone was doing snow, and they had multiple decks I saw that had like 20 odd snow permanents, which is pretty insane. Is it Merit Lage or Merit Lage? Mm-hmm. Well, Merit Lage is a much lighter sleeper than it used to be. That new enchantment is not very hard to pull off in limited. It was really surprising to me. When I first looked at the card image gallery and saw that card, I was like, oh, that'll probably be pretty difficult to do. This is kind of a cute card. Maybe it's aimed somewhere else. But you need those. You're going to need that token because it's waking up. It was really cool.
Sounds like a bit of a sleeper hit there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you get to scry over and over again and then it just wakes up and kills your opponent late in the game is nice. With the limited format, we tested it a lot. Yeah. We think it's really, really fun and enjoyable. But also, there's so many like linear strategies and kind of wonky things you can do in this format that there's also in the back of our minds the little concern of like, is someone going to break this? Is there like one archetype that's just going to crush everything? And snow is one that I'm definitely like, man, if you can just get the snow deck and like get a bunch of the snow draw spells and snow removal spells.
The snow crab has nearly decked me a couple times already. Nearly decked me. I tend to not be decked.
Well, you have a strong penchant for the shuffle 4 cards back in cards, so that helps out with that a little bit.
I do.
I imagine playing against Brian is like, all right, well, we're playing this format, and then you're like, shuffle this back in, and the opponent who like has the 4 Hedron Crab deck is going to be so terrified, right? Or we were talking earlier about drafting like a tight sight deck with like Future Sight and the double shuffle back in card, and then my opponent would be so tilted if that happened.
Can we just go draft that now?
Yeah, if you need to find someone for those 10 to 20 more drafts you want to do, I know a guy who's interested.
Let me ask you a question about Snowlands. You said you've done a bunch of drafts.
Yeah.
What's the earliest you've drafted a Snowland out of a pack in one of your drafts?
So later in the draft, I've first picked a Snowland.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Like if you're going in late and you already have, like in pack 3, if you've got a bunch of playables already, like the Snowlands are 100% to make your deck, 100% to do really good things. I always feel like as an avid drafter of lands, freaking love lands, taking a Snowland is a totally reasonable thing to do if you're heavy on the snow archetype. For pack 1, pick 1, no, hasn't ever quite happened to me.
How often do you play off-colored Snowlands?
I've played off-covered Snowlands many times. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, like playing a 3-ish color snow deck is, I think, a pretty reasonable thing to do in this draft format. You kind of split up your snow rewards a little bit. But yeah, if you need the snow count, if you need to trigger your snow stuff, I think off-color lands is totally fine, right? You'd play colorless land that triggered 3 of your cards in a lot of drafts.
It's like back during the original Affinity draft format where you would draft the off-color artifact.
Yeah, every time, right? Like you're like, all right, Ancient Den in my blue, black, green deck, sign me up, no problem. Just crack some spell bombs, it'll be okay.
Speaking of that, we did briefly talk a little bit about the fixing in the set, and as you were saying that you take off color things. One thing players look forward to seeing in these supplemental sets is what the fixing is going to be like and how they think it will impact Eternal formats and things like Modern and even older formats. Gavin, how did you land on the cycle of the Horizon Canopy cycle as the ultimate one to actually go for in the set for the rare land slot?
You mean these cards,
Those
Jeremy?
cards, yes.
I rare drafted.
This is a fine card too, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of cards, you'll just play off color in a lot of your decks. A land that you can then cantrip later on is great.
Yeah.
We knew we wanted a land cycle as a huge set. One's going to have a lot of modern impact. A land cycle made a lot of sense. And so we just looked back at historically what kinds of things have been really popular in Modern, what we could complete. And because we didn't really want to make a new land cycle for this, because as a throwback set, there's so many unfinished land cycles we could do. And just looking at it, this was kind of the obvious choice. Like there are lands that are the green and white one, Horizon Canopy, has seen a ton of play. They're good in aggressive decks. You can play some in beatdown decks or in control decks as well, but especially finding dual lands that are good in aggressive decks is really hard to do because so often they have to come into play tapped. And these are great for those kinds of decks. So it was just a supernatural fit. We knew players would love them. And I think the number of requests I've got to finish out the allied color cycle is a strong indication that players are pretty excited about these.
It's a pretty easy well to go back to the time spiral, all the future sight stuff to finish those cycles that were hinted at only like the one, because you had like the Graven Karens that you obviously finished very shortly after, but there's that whole thing where there's only like one that's just planted and you can always go find and finish those.
The reason, by the way, why we did the enemy color ones is twofold. One is a silly reason and one is a legitimately good reason. The good reason is that making enemy color lands are just fewer of in Magic's history. So in looking at things like your modern mana bases, your commander mana bases, there's just fewer of them out there. So we like giving enemy color the nod where we can. And secondly, this means that there's 6 instead of 5. If we did the allied color ones, you'd have Horizon Canopy again.
You just have Horizon Canopy.
Now you just get a bonus one.
Brian, do you have any thoughts on if you think this will impact older formats like Modern or Legacy or anything like that?
Obviously, I think this cycle of land, if you're playing like a red burn deck, the last thing you ever want to do is flood out, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where and suddenly being able to just have some number of lands in your deck that just cycle into another land, and also the cycling lands, I think, are going to have a huge impact on Modern. Certainly, the dredge strategies, but also like land strategies, just like Life in the Loam. I know that's also a dredge card, but it's really like kind of a different engine. I think that those cards are going to be huge.
Yeah,
those are the uncommon slots, right?
Yeah, the uncommon. It's the original
the Forgotten Caves.
Onslaught cycling lands.
Yeah, Onslaught cycling lands.
So, which are commander staples for me, right? Like whatever deck I'm playing in Commander, I put one of each of those, and then one of the other ones in each of my colors. But they were always missing in Modern, right? People were always trying to do these like Seismic Assault, Life from the Loam decks. And now not only do you get those lands, which are just huge, right? They're just draw 3s with Life from the Loam. You also get Wrenn and 6, which is a card it was probably the one card I could have opened that I would have picked over Rot Widow Pack, because it's just the card I want to play with and I want to see how that card feels. So I think the lands are going to be huge. I also think this whole cycle obviously fits into that kind of Life from the Loam thing. So I think, either a really cool graveyard deck or a really good deck that punishes a graveyard deck is going to be the big mover in Modern out of this set.
Awesome.
Can you just imagine, BDM, if you will, like turn 1, you're like land go. They're like Plains Champion of the Parish, or not Plains, I guess dual land Champion of the Parish. You're like end step cycle my land, untap Wrenn and 6, kill your Champion of the Parish.
Yes.
Go. Like I'm here for this. I'm so here for this. As someone who qualified for his first Pro Tour playing 10 Onslaught cycling lands in his deck, it's so in my alley. Because when you cycle a land, you can dredge back your Life from the Loam.
Right.
It's like that's the thing, right? You're like cycle, get them back.
It also makes it hard to punish the Life from the Loam.
Yeah.
Because even if they try to kill your graveyard, as long as you're managing your cycling cards, you can be like, okay, well, I'll cycle in response and get my Life from the Loam back.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, we'll do this. And you're like, well, I have another card to cycle. and now I'll get my life from the low back.
Right, against like a Relic of Progenitus, the trick is you just like keep a couple cycling lands in your hand, and then like they try and get your loam, you just cycle one, pick it back up, and you still have a cycling land in your hand, and the whole engine begins anew. Hours of fun right here.
All right, so the next one is we've talked a little bit about it. You mentioned it briefly, Gavin. There's been a feeling during several of the supplemental set previews recently that each one is basically a Commander Master set. This is something that's been brought up several times with Ultimate Masters, with previous Modern Master sets, with Battle Bond especially being a really big one, Unstable having like that fun theme if you want to still use them in Commander, and then this one as well, that there seems to be a lot of good Commander cards. What's the expectation going in on how many cards you kind of want to seed for a Commander set in these kinds of sets?
Well, it's funny, Jeremy. Hearing this come up a few times now as like the designer of Battle Bond, as someone who's touched Modern Horizons, it's so funny to me because Commander's kind of taken over as the de facto casual Magic format, right? If you sit down to play Magic, if you're not playing in a tournament, a lot of the times it is Commander. That's just the format. It's one of the biggest formats in Magic right now. And so what previously was thought of as like, that's the casual kitchen table card, is now they're all classified as Commander cards. Yeah. And no one ever said, oh man, this set is casual Masters or whatever. But because there's like a name for the format now, it's like, oh, anything that doesn't go into Modern is now a Commander card, making it a Commander Masters or a Commander Horizons or something like that. And so that kind of codification and that kind of unification of a more kitchen table casual, let's sit down and just have fun playing this game format, I think has kind of lent itself to that, because naturally not every card is going to hit constructed, and all the other ones are going to end up seeing play somewhere, and might as well make them for somebody. So let's make them for Commander, awesome. And that's kind of where that came from. So I think as you continue to see these ancillary sets in the future, you'll keep seeing a lot of great Commander cards, and you'll keep seeing people call them Commander Masters or Commander Horizons or Commander Bond or Commander Stable or whatever, because you get to use them in this great format that everyone loves.
So in addition to that, just kind of as a flavor thing, in the past you've brought old characters that never had cards into the game through supplementary products like Commander. And then we see with Modern Horizons, we get characters like Sarah, Urza, Yawgmoth, and Palish Mons. Why did you decide to go that route with this set, to bring back that many old characters and have them be creatures? Because there's people like Urza and Yawgmoth who were at one point Planeswalkers.
Have you seen the movie Kill Bill?
I have.
Okay, you've seen it, of course, Brian, right? Of course. So at my desk, I've got a list of legends. It's called the Hit List. It's double-sided, and these are all the legends I want to get into Magic, either getting new ones out there or...
I had you as more of an aria going to sleep every night reciting the list of legends that needed the cards. I really had you more aria here. Okay.
If I had watched more Game of Thrones, it might have been the reference I chose, more for the times. But I'm a Tarantino fan. What can I say? So, and so like the list is like, it's so gorgeous. It's like printed out at one point when I worked with Kelly Diggs on it, but now I've like hand scrawled things over it and like thought of something at my desk. I'm like, oh yes, Ronos, we got to get you in here or whatever. And so whenever I'm looking to put a card in a set, I'm like, okay, which of these legends am I going to work on now? And it's so fun doing things like Commander sets and Horizons that's like trying to do these throwbacks. And I can't wait to find more places to put them, either giving legends who never got a card for the first time, or going back and finally revisiting some old legends that players wanted to have around.
Who's your white whale here?
Oh, my white whale? I want to do Green Sleeves. Do you know who Green Sleeves is?
Green Sleeves is a card that's like on some old flavor text. It's mentioned on like old flavor text.
It's
right?
from the first Magic novel. It's from the book The Arena. She's a planeswalker.
Oh wow!
And it's a white whale. But like, yeah, I want to do some of the wacky planeswalkers. Like, give me a Bolivar, who's like the big beard guy from Commodore Commodore Guff. That's the one I'm thinking of. Big beard guy from Planeswalkers Mirth. Those are the ones that it's like the other ones. Yeah, I can get those past the creative team, no problem. You want to slip.
You want to make a Sarah finally.
Right, you'll make a Sarah. Yeah, everyone's on board with Sarah. But getting them to do like Commodore Guff, that's like a real challenge, right? You can't just slip him into any old Magic set. So, I got some white whales on there, but eventually we'll get stuff. But I've got a short list. I mean, I hear on Twitter all the time people ask for things like, actually I had a Twitter poll about this the other day. Mm-hmm. I'm doing this thing this month where I ask a question every weekday on Twitter, and one of them was, which characters do you want remade? And so things like Mishra, Baron Sengir, like these are things high on my list. I know players have been asking for.
Plus one for Baron Sengir.
Yeah, Baron Sengir. I want a new Baron.
And if people want to vote in that, they can find your Twitter at...
At Gavin Verhey.
There you go.
It's my name, which is probably like down here somewhere.
Possibly. I don't know if we put Twitter handles on this.
Beneath...
Twitter handles on this?
If you're watching this on YouTube, like go down to the comments, hit the expand button, and then you can find all of our information.
There you go. All right, so now we're going to move to some questions that were sent in and from the audience here. The first one was obviously the new format that everybody's kind of talking about recently is Oathbreaker. That's been the one that's been rising in popularity recently. With the explosion in popularity of Oathbreaker, do you think that Modern Horizons 2.0 or possibly another set in the future is a place for something like a 3-color, 3 CMC Planeswalker? Is that something that we could see in the future?
You know, with Magic, speaking of movies that I like, one of my favorite quotes to just whip out all the time is, "You were so busy whether or not you should, you didn't stop thinking if you could," from Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things in Magic we can do. Like it's like, well, we could just make a 2-mana Planeswalker. Yeah, let's make a 2-mana Planeswalker. Who doesn't like 2-mana Planeswalkers? And then sometimes you do that and you end up with Tibble. And you're like, oh, did anyone actually want this? No, not really. We just kind of did it because we're like, what if we did this thing? And so we kind of have to be careful where we deploy it. Now, obviously, I'm no stranger to 3-mana Planeswalkers. I'm totally into doing things like Sarkin, the Temur Sarkin, I thought was really cool, for example. And I think it's only a matter of time until we do get a 3-color Planeswalker that is 3 mana to cast. But we want to make sure we do it at the right time and not just to do it for doing its sake. You know, a few years ago, there was a form people were talking about called Tiny Leaders.
Yep.
A card we made for or not for Tiny Leaders. A card we made with Tiny Leaders in mind was Leovold, Emissary of Trust. Because we're like, oh yeah, what if we made this 3 mana so it could be a Tiny Leaders playable card? And of course, that card has caused plenty of consternation.
I mean, I just assumed Narset and Echo of Eons were just made for Oathbreaker.
It's made for your Oathbreaker deck at least, Brian, that's for sure. So will we see it? I think it's only a matter of time. In Magic, stuff like this will certainly happen, but we want to make sure we do it right when it happens. So you're not going to see a set that just like, here's 10 3-color Planeswalkers because...
Just because we know Oathbreaker is a popular format now, and okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this one comes from...
The other thing to keep in mind, too, just one more thing on that, is we work years in advance.
Yes.
So if we put a card in a set now, then
we might not see it for 2 years or maybe, more, depending on when that set releases. Yeah.
Absolutely. And maybe Oathbreaker continues taking off and does really well, or maybe it kind of peters out, and if it's the second universe, then doing something just for that format, which is kind of what happened with Tiny Leaders in a sense, is a roughie.
Let me ask you about this, because I joke around a little bit about Commander products sometimes, like that I actually want to play EDH. I like the idea of foraging for cards for my decks. And like when you aim a card at a format, like sometimes the Commander cards will be really good because you're like, well, this is never going to touch a regular format. You know, this is never going to touch Modern or, you know, Standard or Draft even. So we can just go crazy with it. Do you worry that when you aim a card at a format like Commander or Tiny Leaders, or I mean, that did not work out very well, or Oathbreaker, or whatever, that sometimes maybe the card becomes a little pushed and you lose some of the organic quality of the format, right? Like the idea of a BDH, you know, where Commander came from, like this idea of like, oh, here are these cards nobody really is playing with right now, these 5 Elder Dragons, and we're going to build decks around them. And we're going to use weird cards that nobody's playing with. Is there a balance? Like how do you struggle with that as game designers?
Yeah, so that's actually a super great question. Something I'm glad to talk about. For a while, it was like, oh, let's make these sweet Commander cards. We know how to make cards that go into Commander decks. Like you just make a really strong ramp spell. Ta-da! Commander deck. Here we go. But of course, you only have 100 slots in any given Commander deck, and it's really easy to fill those up now with a ton of stock cards. Like, okay, I have to have my Command Towers, I have to have my Sol Rings, I have to have my Cultivates, or whatever. And so the barrier to get into one of these decks is really, really high. So if you have a card hit, there's kind of 2 ways you can go about it. One is make them really powerful, which is what we kind of did in the past. But the problem with that is then your decks become just this amalgamation of all these cards released in Commander products that are at this high power level, and you have to keep kind of power creeping yourself to get new cards into your decks, which is kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah, people would always, when I would ask people about that at Wizards, they would always say, well, we wanted the game to end. And I'm like, if we wanted the game to end, we wouldn't be playing Commander, right? Like,
so I'm kind of the guy, I don't know if I've announced this officially anywhere yet, but I'm the person who's kind of the architect on all Commander products. Yeah. So like I am the designated Commander guy inside Wizards. If you have opinions on Commander, send them my way, thoughts. And kind of my new philosophy is, okay, every now and then we might have to make a card that's like, this is going to be really strong on Commander because it's going to fix a hole in the format or something like that. But the kind of new philosophy I have is let's make things that are awesome in certain situations, in like niche Commander decks or certain areas. So it's like, I'm building an artifact-heavy Commander deck. This is a really awesome card to have around, but it's not just going to go in every Commander deck I have. Or I'm building, I want to build my coin flip Commander deck. There's nothing that enables me for that. And then you have Zender, Split, and Oakwand that now enable that to happen. So I prefer to make things that enable new Commander decks and help fill kind of niche goals than are things that have to be played in every Commander deck.
You don't want to, as people have said in the past sometimes with things like, you always have to have a Soul Ring and a Lightning Greaves in this, so you're basically making a 98 card deck. You don't want to be like, hey, we're going to make a 95 card deck because we're always going to have these 5 cards in.
And bring it all the way back around, actually, to Modern Horizons. I think a huge reason why this set has been seen as like a Commander Masters is not that the cards are just at a high power level, which they are in some cases, but that there's so many weird things going on that they give you access to tools you just never had access to before.
Exactly, yep.
There's a lot of combinations you've never seen, so it's not like, this card has to compete against 20 other ramp spells for the slot in my deck. There just isn't a card in Magic like Throes of Chaos. There just isn't one.
Right.
So I might put that into my deck and try that out.
So also bringing it back around to Modern Horizons, I thought it was very interesting that, I think when people imagine Modern Horizons and they heard about it for the first time, they're expecting that there's going to be 3 modular cards in there and 4 Merfolk cards and, 2 more humans that do this. And it is not this set that plugs into existing decks necessarily. And but instead gives you tools like what you're talking about to maybe build some new decks, to unlock maybe some strategies that are a little further down on the power level of the format. But at the same time, right, you have to balance people's excitement, right? Like if people don't see these like kind of like obvious connections to what they're doing with these cards and putting them into their decks, how do you balance that excitement versus not handing people stuff on a silver platter?
Right. If we wanted to make a 25 card Magic set that was just, here's 2 cards for every archetype in Modern, that'd be really easy to do. But it's there's a few different things we could do in this case. I think it's important to have cards like Force of Negation that you just look at and you're like, yeah, okay, that's going to get played. Or the Cycling Lands, which I feel pretty good about those getting played all over the place. But also make sure there are things that are for the archetypes that are just under the surface. And one of the exercises we ran was looking at archetypes that players loved playing but didn't win very much. What are the archetypes with low win rates that keep showing up in places like Magic Online? And then trying to fuse some cards for those archetypes into the format.
This doesn't bode well for my deck selection process. That there were a lot of cards I was very excited about.
Yeah, that's like, I imagine cutting is very, very difficult.
Well, yeah, and then the goal there is, of course, to level those up into things that are actually strong, like giving tools to some of the decks that were just a little bit under the radar. And for example, going back to the Cycling Lands, players love land themes decks. They always love, like, Life from the Loam is a beloved card by the grognards like us who just want to sit there and cycle cards all day, right? And so giving them some more tools to play with, like the bear seismic assault if you want to strip red out of your deck for whatever reason, which Brian, of course, has. This is like the perfect example draft deck, by the way. Just sitting here, everything you can ever want, you're like, here's my Horizon Canopy land, here's my Ayula's Influence. So yeah,
Genesis, Crows and Tusker, Ayula's Influence. It happened.
There you go. Genesis, by the way, another example, like that kind of grindy rock style deck you don't necessarily see as much anymore of, right? And okay, let's give some tools to that deck. Maybe you Spore Frog lock somebody. I don't know, right? Yeah, your eyebrows raised when I said Spore Frog lock.
Yeah.
So making sure that, you can kind of build in those kind of new approaches to archetypes and give players new tools to play around with. So like I was talking about, you got a Spore Frog too, Brian? This is the, like, I don't know, the something of draft decks. There's like, here's my portable hole. I'm just going to reach into it, Roger Rabbit style. Oh, out comes this thing. And so, when we were talking earlier about like people perceiving how much this is going to impact Modern, I think there's a lot of things that will have a high impact that people haven't seen yet. And we take a lot of shots. We're not 100% sure that they're all going to hit, but some are going to hit. So if we take shots at 10 archetypes and 2 of those archetypes end up strong because of this, then I'll be happy, right? If like, oh, now Goblins is a playable deck, awesome, right? Now you get to play Goblins in Modern.
So this one comes from David Thompson, which actually kind of works with what we were talking about with power level here. And they ask, how much of a mindset adjustment was it to design new cards with a focus on Modern playability? Did it seem like you were having to ratchet card power up from initial designs, or were you aiming high and then having to tamper the power level back down?
It kind of works both ways. But generally, when we're designing, a big philosophy that Eric Lauer's kind of instilled is always try and start a little bit too strong and then bring it down. Because it's a lot easier to see something that's too powerful and weaken it than it is to slowly bump it up incrementally to figure out where you're supposed to go. And so with a lot of the cards, I know we're like, okay, we want this to be a shot for goblins or whatever. And then we would start off strong and then ratchet it down to the right spot if we needed to. And yeah, when I would walk over to Tom Ross's desk, there would be tons of stuff over there, just like, all right, here's my goblins deck, come check this out. Here's my changeling deck, come check this out. And there were always like all kinds of scribble marks over the cards, like, oh, this is 3 mana to cast now, or this is a 1/2, or whatever.
Yeah.
And we made a lot of modifications to get those cards into just the right spot. Because once again, we didn't want to accidentally mess up a format player's luck. Like it'd be like it's one thing to have the set come out and people think, oh, it might not have as big of an impact as I thought, but it would also be a big problem for it to come out and people think my format is ruined because of it. And we wanted to be very careful about that.
And this is something that more than likely didn't come up during the actual development of the set, but it might be an indication as to how much the rules team and the design team kind of work together. And this one comes from Dave Schultz asking, when making cards for the Modern Horizons, did you factor in the change of the London Mulligan? And I don't know how early they kind of decided on trying to change up or test a new mulligan style, but was that any sort of consideration? Was there any sort of communication there?
They were kind of running on different tracks a little bit,
yeah.
And we weren't 100% sure that the London Mulligan was even going to stick necessarily. We wanted to try it out, run it through its paces. So I think we kind of knew it was maybe a thing that was brewing, but it wasn't really factored into the decision at all. I think the London Mulligan stuff happened pretty far after Modern Horizons.
Okay.
So.
What's the type of card you would avoid making because of a mulligan rule?
Tunnel vision. If you don't know the card Tunnel Vision, it says choose target player and then name a card, mill them until you hit the exactly named card, or if you didn't hit the card, just shuffle everything back in. And that's the kind of thing that could easily either go awry or make a sweet shuffle cards back in your library draft deck. It's the stuff like that, I think, is things that we would think about. Things like cellar door, things that look at the bottom of your library would be really cool. At one point, there was a card in Modern Horizons that we ended up taking out called Lantern of Undersight that let players draw from the bottom of their library instead of the top of their library. And that's the kind of thing where it'd be like, okay, this is kind of weird, right? You put this card on the bottom and then you draw it. That wasn't the reason why we took it out. Maybe we'll see that card again someday, although it has weird rules quirks. I know that Magic Online looked at us funny when we said we wanted to put that card in the set.
Somebody from Magic Online just comes storming into your office, demanding your head.
But like imagine someone plays like Lantern of Insight and they're like, aha, I've got this Lantern of Undersight ready to go. And then you start drawing from the bottom. That's where the name came from. So many fun playtest names in this set, by the way, just all over the place.
All right, the next one comes from Brian Basoko. And they ask, first, was the flavor text of Gluttonous Slug a happy accident or based on previous personal Magic experiences? And Gluttonous Slug has the flavor text of no amount of salt will save you.
No comment.
All right, and their second question was, did you feel pressure knowing you were making cards for Urza and Yawgmoth?
Yes. We were finally going to do it. We were going to print perhaps the 2 best known characters, or at least the 2 most beloved characters in the history of Magic. And I think, I'm just going to say this, it's totally hyperbolic. I actually haven't counted it at all, but just pretend what I'm saying is true. That I think they have the longest multiverse files of any card in the set. I could be very off on that, but I know I kept leaving comments and others kept leaving comments because everyone in the department wanted to be sure we got these right, that they really felt like the characters. I know for both Yawgmoth and Urza, we did a round of hole filling on them where everyone in the company got to submit ideas for what they could possibly be because we just knew these were going to be huge swings for us, and we had to get them correct. And the reaction to Urza, I think, has been that. We'll see how strong he ends up being in Commander.
How do you have that sort of responsibility to make a great card for an iconic character, but then also maintain like play design balance, right? Like because those things are a little bit in opposition, right? Like I mean, 1 mana one way or the other is the difference between banned and unplayable.
Right. Yeah, we talk about this a lot in design about how when I got to Wizards, I was like, okay, Magic Design's about like this creature gets +2/+2, and this gains double strike, and this costs 6 more mana or whatever. And the line between a playable card and an unplayable card and a busted card is so thin. It's like a single colored mana, a toughness sometimes. It's incredibly thin. And so on these cards, getting them just right is super important. So that's why both having a team of dedicated playtesters on it was super huge, as well as we actually, for cards like Urza, which are going to be commander shots, we have a commander group inside the building we brought in to actually build decks and try these cards out because we wanted to really be sure. And Urza, it looks powerful. But we want to put it through its paces. And even if it ultimately doesn't end up stronger than we thought, we wanted to at least make sure that we had given it the rigmarole, given it the testing. But it is hard when, as the designer, you have the pressure of not just your set, but 25 years of the game's history and what players want to come out of a card on you, right? So, and Urza and Yawgmoth are referenced on so many cards, making sure it felt like their characters is right. So the fact that Urza, for example, references a bunch of his old cards is super cute to me, right? There was one originally, one of my pitches that did not even get put into the set was it made a new Urza's land for you. It was like, wow. when it come into play, create like Urza's, I can't remember what I called it, Urza's workshop or something like that, and then you could like tap lands with subtype Urzas for effects. Anyway, we tried a ton of designs for this guy, and eventually, it turned out great.
Awesome. All right, so we're just going to wrap this up right now. Are there any last thoughts you want to talk about the set at all?
I have a question submitted by Brian.
Yes.
Tell me about Third Ape.
Oh, this is the color shifted Kurt Ape?
This is the card. Ethan Fleischer talked about it on Twitter. People were asking about the Llanowar tribe, and he said that at one point there was a card called Third Ape, which was literally 3 Kurt Apes stapled together. How would that have worked?
Yeah, so when it's funny.
And why can't I have this?
So we saw Llanowar tribe, and everyone loved Llanowar tribe immediately. Actually, fun fact: original Llanowar tribe was GGGG for a 4/4 that tapped for 4 green mana. But we're like, you know what's awesome? Turn 1 Llanowar Elf, turn 2 Llanowar tribe, sign me up. So the first thing we started doing is we just started designing all these goofy cards that were 3 cards stapled together, and trying to come up with the best ones, like the Kurt Ape, which is obviously ridiculous, or not obviously, maybe it's totally fine, but also to the totally like nonsensical, like 3 Mother of Runes all in one place.
3 Magoy.
Yeah, right. You know, what are all these 1 mana creatures cards stapled together? Benevolent Bodyguard. What do 3 Benevolent Bodyguards look like? You know. So I don't know. Maybe someday you'll get your 3 Ape. If we do a Modern Horizons 2 or something, maybe you'll get a shot at it. I would love this to be a super cycle. There's actually a few cards in this set that I think are fun threads for a super cycle. One is the triple mana cost cards, and then the other one is Mirrodin Besieged. I love the like I want to make a card now called like Battle for Zendikar or something like that, and have it you pick a side. You know, I think we can do something fun like that someday. So I don't know. Maybe someday we'll revisit some of this stuff, and you'll get your 3rd Ape.
All right.
I'm curious out there though, in the comments, if you're watching this, or just in your head with your friends or whatever, what would your triple card be? So 3 1 mana creatures stapled together. What do you want to see the most?
Triple Birds of Paradise.
There you go.
Nimblest Mongoose.
Oh, there we go. Nimble Eye Mongoose, yeah. Triple Deathrite Shaman, that'd be a hot one.
Wow, yeah.
Triple Goblin Guide.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts that you want to talk about, Gavin?
All I'm going to say, besides all the things I've already said, is that to me, Modern Horizons is maybe the most exciting Magic set we've ever made, or at least one of the most exciting. And it opens up a whole new world of design. We've never done this before. It's exploratory on so many levels. It's doing Time Spiral again, and doing it right, by the way. It might be one of the most successful sets we've ever made, and goes to show that Time Spiral, which we had talked about as a kind of a design failure for a long time, can be successful if targeted for the right audience. It's full of really memorable cards, like Adamant New Legends back out in there, old mechanics. To me, it's just a set that's paving the way for a ton of stuff in the future, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see other sets take notes from this going forward. So I'm stoked about it. I hope you're stoked about it. Get out there and give it a try. It's like nothing else we have ever done.
Awesome. All right, so thank you all for joining us today. A couple of things to mention. One, Gavin, I believe, is going to be jumping off of this stage and immediately going into the dunk tank outside.
Can I say something about the dunk tank?
Sure.
Jeremy? I freaking love this. So a month ago, we had locked down the SCG Con schedule. We'd figured it all out. And one day I get into work, and my whole, I'm over in my corner, and my whole team is around me, and I start bursting out laughing. And they're like, Gavin, what's going on? And I read the email. Here's the email I want to read to you. I have it memorized in its entirety. Gavin, dear Gavin, comma, enter. How do you feel about being in a dunk tank? Question mark. enter, sincerely Jeremy. And that's how the whole email went. To which I replied, of course, dear Jeremy, comma, enter, yes, period, enter, sincerely Gavin. And that's how we're here right now. So I'm excited. Magic has taken me to a lot of unusual places. I've met celebrities. I've been all around the world. But a dunk tank, that is the thing I forgot existed until you mentioned me, right? That's from the 90s.
Yeah.
So here we are.
So that's what we're going to be doing. Gavin is going to be taking his shift there really quickly.
I have my Pro Tour Honolulu swimming trunks that I brought along for the
Very
occasion.
nice.
Figured that was
very good
nice and on
callback.
theme, right?
And then shortly after that, we'll let him dry off a little bit, and he'll probably join us a little bit later into this next panel, which is going to be Constructing Commander. That's going to start at 2 p.m. We're going to have Brian again, Gavin, when he gets dried off, Sheldon Menery, and Justin Parnell, and we're going to discuss how we build Commander decks, and it's based mainly around Brian's spider spawning deck, his Sidisi spider spawning deck, how you take decks from other formats like Standard or Modern or Limited and make them into Commander decks. So please join us. That will be at 2 p.m. And thank you all for coming out.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your SCG Con.
Have a fun time.